Hello, this is Ollie Wu. I'm back with yet another video tutorial. And after looking at my recent vocal chain last time, as seen here and here maybe in a variation for the background, I want to start looking at least at the overall song template I'm using. So I prepared a template that I can start any song with. Basically starts with drums here, then bass, then single instruments, and then vocals, and finally percussion. And on the single tracks, I'm starting with a preamp, and I'm using this one here from Fuse Audio Labs. And you can see, there's really only some tiny changes per channel in the drive setting mostly. And maybe for the vocals, I'm also setting the high pass to 80 in addition. Now, the rest of this should look very familiar from the dedicated tutorial. Now, the other main component I'm using is also from Fuse Audio Labs, but you can, of course, split this into an EQ and compressor or filters separately. You don't have to use one combined channel strip for that, obviously. But this is after really trying a lot of different EQs, really cool. It's summarized here into a typical SSL type channel. And I'm using the SSL 360 Link plugin for this. And I'm getting back to this in a couple minutes while I'm doing that. It basically allows me to use high pass and low pass filters and a typical 4-band EQ. And I recommend really that for this EQ, you are setting the Q values to a very restrictive type, and I derived those more or less from the typical pretty wide Neve EQ settings. So I'm not even trying to map those, and I'm not using the middle band of those 5 bands. So that's why I end up basically just these settings. Even the typical frequencies, I already kind of preset them, at least for the high shelf and the low shelf. I always use the shelf modes here. So yeah, this is all about restriction. And of course, before I might have only used a equalizer for every channel and not a preamp and not even compressor. This is a pretty generic and pretty extensive compressor for a channel strip. So that's another reason for using this channel strip. You really got all the typical settings, including knee, and usually those compressors are quite restricted in those channel strips. Yeah, so as you can see, this combination of preamp and channel strip is really used in pretty much any of those single channels. And the only reason why I didn't use the preamp inside the channel strip is because I like this one a bit better. Okay, so let's look a bit into special plugins as per channel. For the drum channels, I just like to use a gate plugin. This is nothing fancy. That's just the default noise gate for my DAW. You can take any other plugin for that. It's just so that the right cymbals don't last forever at the end of the song mostly. So this is just a special bass amp for this bass channel, acoustic bass channel I'm using instead of the normal preamp. And then in addition to the amplifier and EQ compressor combination here, in this case, I'm using a special effect from the UGEM Finisher Retro, which I like, which is adding subharmonics. So maybe I'll leave this on the screen for a second longer, so you can copy that. So that just adds 1 octave lower bass. And to make the bass even rounder for some songs where it fits, I'm using a Moog sub bass. So I'm basically just recording a MIDI track for the normal bass first, and then I'm just doubling that into this track. And here, just to make it fatter, I might or might not use this special version, which is really the famous Dimension D chorus. So you could also use other plugins for that. For piano, more recently, I like to use a bit of a clipped sound, but you see I haven't even dialed in the character. I just increased the resonance a bit. So it's also something to play around with. Remove the basses a bit here as well. So just make it a bit more stronger. I think this is a trick to not just use EQ, but some saturation to make the signal stronger. Yeah, and here I think we pretty much covered the vocal chains. I mean, we didn't talk about an optional slap delay with just about 70 milliseconds. This is something that sometimes fits. I might then not use all the plate and chamber reverb. These will have to be covered in another tutorial, these sound effects, and you can see it here too. This is the same setup like here. And on the background, I have the slap delay more often as a preset. And what's also very nice is this eventide shimmer verb, which sometimes just lets the background standing for a while longer. Then we looked at the auto tune and the pitch cure already in a separate tutorial. The only reason I'm using pitch cure for the background is I have the very simple version of auto tune that has no MIDI option, but the pitch cure can also receive MIDI. So I have in my template some MIDI guide tracks that are always active and always on permanent solo also set up already. Usually I have 5 of these tracks. I'm showing 3. So they might be left 30, left 10, center, right 10, right 30. Yeah, so now I have one more special effect here in pretty much all the percussion tracks, except I would say for anything that's like a cymbal or, you know, wind chime, stuff like that, but the more drum-like sounds. This is a great free effect from Baby Audio. They now removed it from their website, but you might be lucky finding this in the Internet Archive, hint, hint. Somebody might have archived it there, so give it a try there. And settings usually somewhere around this here, I would say. This area is kind of where I'm using this. And, you know, just change it a bit and kind of just go by ear. But this really adds a bit of slap, I would say. Yeah, and the percussion really can have up to 20 channels already pre-mapped, including the pan setting in my template. I'm only showing one as an example, and this is actually a group, and the chorus and the verse are also groups, and the background is also a group coming in right here. So there could be more than one verse channel or one chorus channel also. I wanted to show you quickly also how I'm working with SSL 360. So you could also, of course, just plug in the VCS-1 directly. The advantage of 360 is that you can actually connect the 360 up even without having any other SSL plugin or hardware controller. You can use this for free. You can absolutely remote control every single setting. So these are all your compressor and EQ settings. And there's a different plugin we will cover when we talk about the master channel, which is for the master channel compressor. And you can see that here as well. So this is totally optional, and only if you want to have maybe this kind of style, like SSL console style. Depends a bit on your DAW. Now, when you do this, be aware that you cannot just hide a channel here if you're not using, say, the solo synth in this song. Doing this will not fix it. It hides it from all my views. Find where that is, maybe here. And I think there's also another option to just say disable track. Depends on your DAW completely. So what might also be interesting for you, if you make certain connections and you have to add this virtual MIDI port 1 in and out as a Mackie control, and it depends a bit again, of course, on your DAW, you can really remote control almost everything from here, including the transport, going back and forth, record, looping, enabling these channels, which will more or less switch on and off that Link plugin. But here you even can select if you're doing the plugin volume, and I actually prefer to do the DAW volume. So if I'm pulling back the guitar and go back to my DAW, this is exactly remote controlling in both ways. See and try for yourself if this makes sense. That's it for today. This is Oliver. Bye.